My name is Nicholas Grdina, and my photographer's presentation is on Andy Goldsworthy. Depth, I'll give a quick overview on who Goldsworthy is and what he mainly does. Goldsworthy is a British-based photographer that both captures images and creates sculptures based on nature. He tends to let nature take back any sculpture he makes, meaning the images taken will be the only evidence of them in the future. The biggest takeaway from his work is he wants the viewer to appreciate the nature in his photos for what it is. And like many artists, he still makes work today. He was born on July 25th, 1956 in Cheshire, a county in England known for rural villages. He later was raised in Yorkshire, where he worked as a farm laborer during summers at an early age. His parents, who were both strict Methodists, gave rise to his hard work ethic. His farm labor would influence his appreciation of nature and enjoyment of sculpture making. His current residence is Penpont, Dumfriesshire, a county in Scotland. He studied at Bradford College in Yorkshire, England for his foundation year. He later attended Preston Polytechnic, now the University of Central Lancashire, for his full degree. While at Preston Polytechnic, he became familiar with and was inspired by numerous artists with similar beliefs towards nature as he did. He also learned he disliked working in small studios, another reason for his choice of working within nature. Goldsworthy's art unique is his portrayal of the ephemeral qualities of nature. Goldsworthy uses completely natural materials and processes to make his sculptures. He often chooses his materials based on his ability to discover more about it. One interesting part about his process is he doesn't see himself as designing something. Many sculptures he makes aren't mapped out, they grow as he works on them. Because of the materials he uses, many of his works don't last too long. Some break immediately, while others decay with time. Despite that, Goldsworthy tries his best to create his work. Materials aren't just chosen from nature. They're chosen based on the places and seasons he works in. In winter, he may use ice, and on a beach, he may use loose rocks. Numerous works of his utilize forms found in nature. Balls, patches, lines, arches, and spires are some of the most common. Some forms have special meaning to Goldsworthy. For example, he uses the spiral like that of a fern to give the feeling of endless growth, while the use of a hole adds an unnerving element and question of stability for him. His photography is unique based on what kind of piece he's making. He photographs a location 3 times, once before making a sculpture, once the sculpture is made, and once after when revisiting the sculpture. Although he has a belief in nature taking back his works, he doesn't have anything against permanent works. It is an opinion of what he finds in nature, not an opinion towards how art is made. He always photographs an ephemeral work, temporary one, once it's finished, but will always wait a longer time to photograph a permanent one. Photographs are usually directly connected to his sculptures, as they're taken without filters or anything that would alter the photo. The photos are meant to portray the sculptures as they were the day they were made. The photos are also usually the only evidence of some works, meaning they are as equally important as the sculpture itself. He chooses photography to capture his sculptures because he believes they portray his work the best. He thinks that using drawings or paintings to record his work would include the purpose and reasoning behind the making of the sculptures, when, in the end, he would rather just depict the result. Have similar beliefs towards nature. Richard Long, for example, is a land artist, a movement I'll discuss in the next slide, like Goldsworthy. He utilized elements in nature to make works and to show off the ephemeral qualities of them as well. Joseph Beuys, an illustrator, painter, sculptor, performer, and activist who would frequently use natural elements like animal fat in his work for metaphors and conceptual ideas. The event happening while Goldsworthy was starting to make art was the land art movement. It was an event that took place during the 1960s and 1970s in both America and Europe. There were several differences between how American and European artists utilized land art. Americans would typically use large spaces in America to create large works from natural materials. On the other hand, Europeans focused on the ephemeral gestures of nature due to smaller land spaces. Goldsworthy has applied both types of land art in his own works, despite where he was when the piece was made. 1890s, Goldsworthy was considered a well-known artist by many. However, he got a significant amount of criticism for his style of work. Many critics and historians criticized his work for only beautifying nature and nothing more. On the other hand, conceptual artists who were a part of a large shift in art criticized Goldsworthy's art for not being conceptual enough. Despite all his criticism, Goldsworthy kept on making work as he did before. There were several events within Goldsworthy's life that changed his work. His ex-wife was unexpectedly killed in a car crash, and his mother passed away some time later. Works after those events focused more on ideas of transience, the void, and even death. Some of those works began to include figures within his photos, something previously not done before. Goldsworthy takes three different types of cameras with him: a 35mm SLR, a Hasselblad, and a Fuji GX617. Before November of 1983, Goldsworthy only took photos on the 35mm format. Afterwards, he started using his Hasselblad camera, which offered a 2 1/4 inch square format. Earlier photos were all printed onto Cibachrome paper, a kind of paper that offered exceptional color at the cost of being permanent and difficult to develop. Due to the difficult nature of developing an image on Cibachrome, development would be done by commercial laboratories. Eventually, most of Goldsworthy's works were no longer developed on Cibachrome, with the exception of 50-inch Cibachrome papers instead. Many prints of Goldsworthy were produced on pearl paper. This paper gives the images a lustrous appearance due to the pearl fibers within them. Goldsworthy's first pieces were very simple compared to his later works. Pictured on the right is his earliest recorded work, Stone Sinking in Sand. Many aspects of his later works are missing from it, like a lack of natural forms and the structure of it being simple and straightforward. As he was only a student at the time, it was created with a more man-made appearance. One aspect of it that did coincide with his beliefs of nature was, after its construction, he allowed the river to move the rocks as much as it liked so that the sculpture would change shape and eventually vanish back into nature. Goldsworthy began to employ colors in his works by finding materials of certain colors and manipulating them in his sculptures. The use of color adds a sense of change in nature, as certain colored materials, like fallen leaves, will only remain a certain color before becoming part of the soil. Eventually, he started to promote natural forms within his works and use them for their symbolism. Using the whole again as an example, besides using it as a representation for stability or an unnerving feeling, Goldsworthy sees the whole as the end of life itself, not just in nature, but for all people too. He also began to create sculptures that required a high level of patience and dexterity. Some sculptures, like the one pictured to the right, required patience and precision to stack all the rocks on top of each other and keep them standing for Goldsworthy to photograph them. Goldsworthy has been known for is his Rain Shadow series. The series is much more conceptual compared to other works of his, but still perfectly captures the qualities of nature within them. Many of these works would involve Goldsworthy lying on the ground as either rain or snow started to fall. Afterwards, he would photograph the mark he left to show its existence. While many of Goldsworthy's rain shadows were primarily taken in nature settings, he has done some in urban settings. His rain shadow in Times Square was designed to show that, despite people being seemingly separated by nature, still coexist with it in some way. Creates relatively small sculptures. There have been times in his career in which he was commissioned to make something significantly larger. Many of those commissions were designed to be permanent fixtures, and because they're permanent, the materials Goldsworthy uses are significantly more durable, but are still natural in some way. It's considered one of, if not the most ambitious project Goldsworthy was commissioned to make. The piece Storm King Wall is a 2,278 feet long stone structure found in New York. It was designed to subvert the Old English tradition of using stone walls to delineate territory. Traditionally, the trees surrounded by the stone walls would typically be removed for human use, but the walls in Storm King Wall are designed to protect them. And while not openly stated by Goldsworthy, a political message could be drawn from the stone walls. It makes the viewer ask if they're with the trees or against them. And Andy Goldsworthy is a sculptor and photographer that utilizes the nature around him to showcase the ephemeral qualities of it to people around the world. Thank you for listening.